him during his peak years. Eala had done what many thought impossible. She made Nadal laugh mid-rally. That single moment spoke volumes. Across the Atlantic, Aryna Sabalenka, the world #1, watched the footage in disbelief. A player who had spent years competing at the highest level, striving for greatness and recognition, could only shake her head at what she was witnessing. There was something different about this connection, something deeper than competition. What the world saw that day wasn't just a practice session. It was a glimpse into a unique bond, between a legend who had given everything to the sport and a young talent shaped under his guidance. November 19, 2025. Mallorca, Spain. Exactly 1 year had passed since Nadal played the final match of his professional career at the Davis Cup Finals in Malaga, a farewell so emotional it left millions in tears. For 12 months, he had stayed away from the game. No matches. No training sessions. Not even a casual hit. Instead, he focused on what mattered most: his family, his charitable foundation, and nurturing the next generation at his academy. But some connections to the sport never truly fade. And on that quiet court in Mallorca, with no crowd and no stakes, Rafael Nadal reminded the world that while his career may have ended, his story with tennis is far from over. On this day, something shifted. Rafael Nadal laced up his shoes once again, carefully taped his fingers out of long-standing habit, and walked onto the indoor clay court at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Manacor. There were no roaring crowds, no flashing cameras, no championship pressure. This wasn't a comeback. It wasn't a competition. It was something far more meaningful, a quiet tribute to the sport that defined him, to the academy he built from the ground up, and to the young players who would carry his legacy into the future. Waiting for him on the other side of the net was Alex Eala. The 20-year-old Filipina had first arrived at the academy at just 13 years old, a shy, determined teenager from Manila, carrying nothing but a dream and a racket. Over the years, she grew not just as a player but as a person within those very courts. Though she officially graduated in 2023, the academy had never stopped being her home. And on this day, for the very first time, she would share the court with her mentor. "It was so special for me," Eala would later say. Obviously, training with Rafa is something people and young kids can only dream about. It was such a pleasure to share the court with him. The session was recorded and later shared by Rafael Nadal himself on social media. His caption was simple, yet powerful: "1 year later, it felt great to be back on a tennis court. It was great to practice with you, Alex. Next time, I will be stronger." Within hours, the video spread across the internet, drawing millions of views. Fans around the world tuned in, not for a match, but for a moment. What they saw was something rare. The two left-handers exchanged smooth, effortless baseline rallies. Their timing was natural, their rhythm almost poetic. But beyond the technique, it was the atmosphere that stood out. Nadal wasn't the intense, battle-hardened competitor the world was used to seeing. He looked free, relaxed, smiling, even playful at times. It was a version of him that only a few had ever witnessed, a legend at peace with the game he once dominated. The session was filled with memorable exchanges, subtle gestures, and quiet respect between mentor and student. But one moment, above all, stood out, one that would leave fans talking long after the video ended. Above all others. Midway through one of the rallies, Alex Eala struck a sharply angled forehand that pulled Rafael Nadal completely off the court. The point was hers. But what followed made the moment unforgettable. Instead of a quiet nod or a simple reset, Eala burst forward, sprinting toward the net with her arms raised in a playful, almost childlike celebration. It was spontaneous, full of energy and completely unexpected. For a split second, Nadal looked surprised. And then, he laughed. Not a polite smile. Not a restrained grin. A full, genuine, unfiltered laugh. He threw his head back, the sound echoing across the quiet indoor court, a moment so rare it instantly felt historic in its own way. Years of fierce competition, of pressure-packed finals and relentless focus, seemed to melt away in that single reaction. The King of Clay was no longer battling for a title. He was simply enjoying the game. The clip spread across social media at lightning speed, shared millions of times within hours. Fans from every corner of the world reacted to what they had just witnessed, not just a rally, but a glimpse into a side of Nadal rarely seen. "This is the Rafa we never get to see," one fan wrote. "Just a legend enjoying tennis with a young player he truly believes in." Another added, "She made Nadal laugh. That's a win bigger than any trophy." What made the moment even more powerful was the contrast. Throughout his career, Nadal had been the embodiment of intensity, his iconic fist pumps, the booming "vamos." The laser-sharp focus on every single point. Emotion, for him, was usually channeled into competition. Joy like this? Mid-rally? Almost unheard of. For Ela, it meant everything. She had spent years at the Rafa Nadal Academy, learning not just how to hit a forehand or construct a point but how to think, how to fight, and how to carry herself like a professional. Nadal wasn't just an idol, he was part of the environment that shaped her. And now, in this unscripted moment, she wasn't just his student. She was his hitting partner. His equal in that rally. Someone who could surprise him, challenge him, and even make him laugh. It was validation in its purest form. The practice session itself was far from a one-time occurrence. It represented something deeper, a culmination of years of quiet work, early mornings, sacrifices, and belief. A full-circle moment. From a young girl arriving in Mallorca with a dream, to sharing the court and a laugh with one of the greatest players the sport has ever known. And in that moment, it felt like the beginning of something new, not just for Ela, but for Nadal's legacy beyond the game. It was the culmination of a relationship that had been quietly growing for nearly a decade. Alex Eala first arrived at the Rafa Nadal Academy in 2018. She was just 13 years old, a scholarship student from the Philippines, far from home, speaking little Spanish, and stepping into an entirely new world where she knew no one. What she did have was determination. Day after day, she trained alongside some of the most promising young players in the world. She absorbed everything, the discipline, the routines, the mentality. This wasn't just about improving her strokes, it was about understanding the philosophy that had shaped Rafael Nadal into one of the greatest athletes in history. And over time, Nadal noticed. He followed her progress quietly at first. A word here. A gesture there. Encouragement when it mattered. As the years passed, that recognition grew into something more meaningful. By 2025, Ela was no longer just a promising student, she was making serious noise on the professional stage. Her breakthrough came at the Miami Open, where she stunned the tennis world with a remarkable run to the semifinals. Along the way, she defeated 3 Grand Slam champions, including Iga Swiatek, a victory that instantly elevated her status. Nadal was watching. Like millions of others, he followed her journey, but his reaction carried a deeper weight. Taking to social media, he wrote, "We are extremely proud of you, Alex. What an incredible tournament. Let's keep dreaming." It wasn't just praise, it was personal. Later that year, when Ela claimed her first WTA title in Guadalajara, Nadal once again made his support public. "Congrats, Alex, for your first WTA title. I am happy and proud of what you are achieving, for yourself and for the Philippines." The bond between them had clearly grown beyond coach and student. It was built on respect. On shared values. Years of quiet observation and mutual belief. Ela has often spoken about what sets Nadal apart, not just his achievements, but his character. "He is so grounded, and he has achieved more than anything I could ever dream of," she once said. "The fact that he is still so kind to everyone around here is something I really admire." That humility left a lasting impression on her. And during that now viral practice session, it wasn't just rallies and laughter. There were moments of mentorship woven in, small but meaningful. At one point, Nadal paused to offer her specific advice, focusing on the finer details of her game. It wasn't a grand speech or a formal lesson, just a few words, delivered with the same care and precision that had defined his own career. Because even in retirement, Nadal wasn't just playing tennis. He was still teaching it. "He gave me some tips on my forehand and a few other small pieces of advice," Alex Eala revealed afterwards. They weren't dramatic changes or long lectures, just subtle adjustments. But coming from Rafael Nadal, even the smallest insight carried immense value. These were the kind of details only a 22-time Grand Slam champion could notice, the fine margins that separate good players from great ones. The Rafa Nadal Academy itself marked the moment as something special, sharing the session online with a simple but powerful message. Incredible to see him back on court, sharing his passion and knowledge. For Ela, it was nothing short of a full-circle moment. Years earlier, she had arrived as a wide-eyed teenager chasing a distant dream. Now, she stood on the same court not as a student but as a professional, ranked inside the top 50 in the world and the first Filipina in history to achieve that milestone on the WTA Tour. It was no longer just about potential. It was proof. While much of the tennis world celebrated the emotional reunion between mentor and student, one particular viewer watched with a mix of admiration and disbelief. Aryna Sabalenka, the world #1, has never hidden her respect for Nadal. Earlier that year at the Australian Open, she admitted just how much his presence affected her. Playing in front of him wasn't just another match, it was nerve-wracking. "The whole match, I kept telling myself, 'Don't look there, please don't look,'" she confessed with a laugh. Afterward, the competitive fire gave way to something more human. Sabalenka walked straight over to Nadal, her demeanor shifting instantly, from dominant champion to devoted fan. "Yeah, I'm a huge fan. Can I take a picture with you, please?" she asked, smiling. It was a reminder that even the very best in the world still look up to greatness. And yet, while players like Sabalenka dreamed of impressing him, Nadal's attention had, in many ways, been quietly invested elsewhere. In Ela. He had seen her journey from the beginning. The early struggles. The steady growth. The breakthrough moments. While the world was just starting to take notice, Nadal had been watching for years. Not as a spectator, but as someone who believed. He had celebrated her victories, stood by her through difficult moments, and now, on the anniversary of his retirement, shared the court with her. For Aryna Sabalenka, the contrast was hard to ignore. Despite her dominance, multiple Grand Slam titles and her reign as world number one, she had never experienced that kind of personal connection with Rafael Nadal. Respect, yes. Admiration, certainly. But not this. Not something this close. When the footage of Nadal's practice session with Alex Eala spread across the world, Sabalenka's reported reaction was one of surprise, mixed with something deeper. Disbelief. According to those close to her, she couldn't quite process it. Nadal, out of all possible choices, had stepped back onto the court not with a fellow legend, not with a champion, but with Eala. A player still writing her story. "I've done everything," Sabalenka has admitted in moments of frustration. "I've won Grand Slams. I've been number one, and still, sometimes it feels like the crowd is cheering for someone else." That someone else effect, the phenomenon of sold-out arenas, overwhelming fan energy, and global attention, has shifted the spotlight in unexpected ways. And now, the growing bond between Nadal and Eala had added yet another layer to that narrative. But to reduce that moment to comparison alone would miss the bigger picture. Because what unfolded on that quiet court in Mallorca was more than just a viral video. It felt like a passing of the torch. For nearly 2 decades, Nadal had defined an era of tennis. His game, built on crushing topspin, relentless defense, and an unbreakable fighting spirit, set the standard, especially on clay. As a left-hander, he turned what many saw as a rarity into a weapon that dominated the sport. And now, across the net, stood a player who carried echoes of that same identity. Eala is also left-handed. But more importantly, she reflects the same mindset. The same hunger. The same refusal to give up on a point. The same belief that every rally can be turned and every match can be fought for. In her, Nadal doesn't just see talent. He sees continuity. Not a replacement, but a reflection of values that defined his career. And perhaps that's why that moment mattered so much. Because on a quiet day, away from the noise of competition, one era didn't just end. It quietly reached forward, and found its future. She relies on defense, patience, and sharp tactical awareness. She fights for every point, no matter the scoreline. And above all, she refuses to give up. She has that fire, one insider from the Rafa Nadal Academy said. The same fire Rafa had at her age. You can't teach that. You're born with it. Alex Eala